What's up, Goth Gamer Nation and Goth Hunters? Welcome to Darkened Streams, wherein I review every single one of the 327 episodes of Supernatural, or however many YouTube allows before shutting me down. What do we learn in the last episode? People vastly underestimate the show's ability to be awful. Bugs is the tip of the iceberg. Also, maybe the divide between Sam and his father is more Sam's fault than anyone's. After all, he was the one who went into a grief-fueled vengeance quest that roped two children into being raised like Raiden. Oh wait, that was John that did that, huh? Season 1, Episode 9, entitled Home, is the first proper lore episode since the pilot, and it is appropriately written by series creator Eric Kripke. It was also directed by Ken Girardi, who has over 100 TV directing credits, all of which are invalidated by the fact that none of them are X-Files, so we're shit out of luck this time. That's it. Home's cold open depicts a woman who evidently just moved into a new house, putting her daughter to bed, and consoling her fears that there's something in her closet. She goes back to exploring their house and discovers a box of photos, all of which are of the Winchester family, revealing that she is the current occupant of their childhood home.
Please, God, don't let it be rats.
Lady, you could do a lot worse than rats, okay? Now you get down there and you apologize, and you shake their little grabbies. In a clever way, this cold open is sort of repurposed as a prophetic dream that Sam has. And finally, the boys have the talk, finally addressing this pulsating tension between them about Sam's abilities, his psychic abilities. We've been skirting around it, but now he's come out of the closet as a psychic. He dreamt about his girlfriend's death long before it happened, and now he's having a new dream about this family in their old house, screaming for help, which honestly is a trope they should have been leaning on since the beginning. Like, doesn't it make more sense that they would be driving around helping people Sam saw in visions, rather than just wandering the country until they stumble on something weird? I guess what I'm describing is Medium. Can we do that show too? I like that show. If you like murder mysteries and seeing Patricia Arquette violently wake her husband up every night, that's the show for you. There's some interesting stuff going on in this episode, including a little surprise at the end. Really, guys? Fuck me, well never mind. This episode also includes two completely throwaway lines that either intentionally or accidentally get payoffs several years later. One of them being when Dean is rattling off possible leads for cases, he mentions the crew of a California fishing trawler disappearing, which you could easily headcanon in as the vampire pirate gang Benny from Season 8 belongs to. If you're one of the many that's watching these videos without actually watching the show, I'm just gonna leave that concept without context as an indication to the kinds of places this show goes post-Kripke era. Sam tells Dean about his vision and pleads with him that they check on their house, something Dean isn't excited to do because he vowed never to step foot in it again. But he eventually relents and they both head over to where it all started. They meet Jenny and her two children who are actively ignoring what sounds like textbook signs of a haunting. Dean is about to go into the whole FBI spiel, but Sam cuts him off and they play it straight and tell her that they used to live here and just want to check on the old place. I've always liked how realistically apprehensive Jenny is about letting them in. You can see her weighing how possibly weird and creepy this might be, but then presumably she looks at Dean one more time and says, fuck it. One of this episode's strengths is that it takes the hunt format we've been working with and turns it on the protagonists. This isn't exactly some monster they can roll up and punch in the face and then skip town on. The idea that something supernatural is happening in their house and that Sam has some kind of supernatural ability genuinely terrifies Dean. And you can see that all throughout his performance in this episode. He's trying to put on a brave face for Sam, but this is far more than he can deal with. The standout moment of this whole episode, I'd say, is Dean sneaking away at the gas station to fruitlessly call their father.
I don't know if it's the thing that killed Mom or not, but I don't know what to do.
This is another scene that is mirrored later on in one of the few moments of promise in Season 13, when Dean sneaks away behind a fast food joint to pray to God and similarly gets no response. Not unlike Mulder praying for help finding his sister in Season 1, Episode 4 of X-Files. Sorry, it had been a while and I was starting to feel withdrawals. It's clear to the boys that there is something haunting the house, but because they have an emotional stake in the situation, they decide to play it by the book and work this like they would any case. Interview some people, do some research. Meanwhile, the situation escalates in their house when a plumber gets his hand caught in a garbage disposal and her son gets locked in a refrigerator. Which, to be fair, he did willingly climb into it, so I don't know. You get the world you deserve. They try to track down people that knew their father, the first being a mechanic that, speaking of Season 1, Episode 4 of X-Files, was in that very episode, as well as a handful of others. This guy turns out to be mostly useless, but he does mention that John used to visit a psychic, one they find mention of in his journal, named Missouri. I like this scene and this character, though it is emblematic of an unfortunate missed opportunity, in my opinion. Missouri is like a sassy psychic with a heart of gold that knows a great deal about their father and their family in general, and is set up to be a surrogate parental figure to them, which would have added a lot to the series, but it's about 12 years before we see her character again. This is likely due to her scoring a recurring role on Grey's Anatomy not long after this episode. And we don't have to do that show. But she's great, and she's the only real source of levity in this whole episode. It's uncharacteristically kind of serious and straight. There's nary a smelly boy moment from Dean, or a zany comedy organ in sight. Missouri may have been ditched as a character, but she still holds great significance within the lore, as she is responsible for, as she puts it, drawing back the curtains for their father, revealing to him the world of the supernatural when he was struggling to understand his wife's death. Sam's ability to sense something in their old house shows that his power, whatever it is, dwarfs even Missouri's. Though this is presumably before they had Season 2 written, so the whole premise of Sam's abilities is a little fluid at the moment. There's a logic to Season 1's world that is quickly either expanded upon or abandoned, leaving this odd disjointedness to some things in this season, very much including Sam's powers and the mechanics of ghosts. You could interpret this, I think, as, well, the characters don't know this is how something works, so they couldn't relate that to the audience accurately, but the truth is the show was passed through so many hands that there is ultimately some unevenness. They show up at the house and convince Jenny to let them cleanse it of whatever's haunting it, likely several entities. They do this by introducing a series staple, hex bags, though they don't call them by name until Season 3. Also, I can't recall them being used quite like this in any other episode. Hex bags are usually used by witches to some kind of cruel end, but in this episode they are placed at different points in the house to drive spirits out. We get some fun effects shots of the house fighting back and trying to stop them from putting these bags in the walls. Yay, they did it! Wait, why is there like 10 minutes left? They already saved it. They saved the lady. Dean's gonna get kissed. Sam wants to stake out the house for the night to make sure the cleaning worked, but his vision seems to have been legit as he sees Jenny screaming for help from her window. In the midst of intense poltergeist activity, and what is honestly a really cool visual effect, this flaming figure appears from the closet and is revealed to be the spirit of their mother. Sam, am I gonna have to shoot my mom? Their mother appears to protect the boys from the malevolent spirit in the house, leaving Sam with an enigmatic apology. I love how much they utterly destroy this poor woman's house. She just moved in, doesn't have a job, presumably fresh out of a messy divorce or something, and then she moves into the fire death ghost house where she gets sued by a plumber, and then Sam and Dean, the wrecking crew, show up to smash the whole thing to bits. Look at Dean hoofing it to save Sam. Runs so fast he doesn't even notice the ghost of the cameraman. There's a lot to like in this episode. I think it's pretty strong. There's some weird vagueness around what the actual threat is, but I think that was mostly in service to the reveal that the real ghost was Mary, and it's a rather powerful and appropriate send-off to her character. They definitely shouldn't bring her back in any capacity. That would probably nullify the power of this moment where Sam sees his dead mother for the first time. Definitely shouldn't bring her back to fuck sociopath James Bond. Anyway, there isn't a lot of blood or death in this one. I feel like they threw in the garbage disposal scene, A, to fill a quota of Stephen King imagery, and B, because otherwise nothing gruesome would really happen in this episode. So it's kind of cheap, but well done, so it's still fun. There's a lot of nods to horror filmmaking in it, which are not subtle, but I'm glad the show at this point still knows it's a horror show. I also applaud their restraint in not having Dean say, "Here's Johnny" in this scene. They would of course later stomp on this goodwill,
"Here's Johnny,"
and then restore it 3 seasons after that.
Don't say, here's Johnny.
Sam telling Jenny's daughter to take your brother outside and don't look back is one of those things that, like, I don't know if you've earned that scene yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and accept it and find it touching anyway because I'm easy. In the episode's final moments, we get a brief tease of their father, who hints that he can't talk to the boys until he knows the truth, which is intriguing, but also you very much could because they think you might be dead right now. I think that could really ease some of the tension between the two. I mean, they've been looking for you and getting in scraps about all this. This is like minimum requirements for dad presence. Acknowledge your existence. Actually, the longer you're gone, the longer we can do Monster of the Week episodes, so take your time, Dad.
We just gotta chill out, that's all. You know, if this was any other kind of job, what would we do? Whatever you're doing, if you could get here. Please.
I mean, first you tell me that you've got The Shining.